Welcome to After Class, a podcast about all things adult ballet. I'm Hannah, your host and fellow dancer, and I'm so glad you're here. Each week, I share stories, strategies, and encouragement to help you stay inspired on your ballet journey, because I understand what it's like to balance real life and ballet dreams. So grab your water bottle or a cup of coffee and join me for a chat after class. Thank you guys for tuning in and spending some time with me today. I actually had a whole other topic planned about goal setting for the fall, and I am going to get that one out to you soon because it's great content. But to be honest with you, I just couldn't bring myself to record it today because here's the truth. I had a really rough class this morning, and I wanted to share about it because I know I'm not the only one who goes through this. So I'm just going to tell you guys what happened. Class itself wasn't bad on paper. I showed up, I worked hard, I tried to stay focused. But there's this one correction I keep on getting over and over again. And no matter how much I try, it feels like I'm not improving. Straighten your leg, Hannah. During tendus, straighten your leg. During adagio, straighten your leg. During pirouettes, straighten your leg. It feels like it's popping up everywhere and in every combination to the point where I started wondering, am I actually getting worse the harder I try? On the drive home, I could just feel myself spiraling. My inner voice, one of my friends calls it her mean PE coach voice, which feels totally accurate. I started just layering on the frustration of why can't I just get this right with shame, honestly. Shouldn't I be better at this by now? That combination is honestly so brutal. You're stuck between I'm not good enough and I'm never going to get better, which is the kind of loop that makes you want to either push harder than ever or quit entirely, neither of which is very helpful when you're in that state. So today I got in my car and I cried for most of the drive home. And if you've ever had this happen to you, you know that those tears aren't just about the one correction, right? It's about everything that builds up, every moment you've felt behind, every time you've wondered if you're capable. It's not just one straighten your leg, it's every correction piling on top of each other until your brain says, see, you're never going to get it right. Have you ever had that happen? That moment where you feel like, what is even the point if I can't get better at this one thing? It's discouraging, and what makes it even harder is that I don't feel like I have the time or energy to do all the extra work outside of class. I already spend so much time on ballet, in class, strength training, icing, stretching, and I still feel behind. So the spiral continues. If I did have more time, maybe I'd be better. If I really cared, maybe I'd spend more time at the studio after class, working on my legs. And suddenly ballet, the thing that brings me so much joy, feels like a burden and a measuring stick that tells me I'm not good enough. And I know this isn't just me. This is something so many of us dancers experience. We want to get better. We hear the corrections, but life outside the studio is real and it's busy. We don't have endless hours every day to dedicate to ballet. And sometimes, even when we're giving it everything we've got, progress feels invisible. So here's what I reminded myself once I stopped crying and took a few deep breaths. First, corrections are not a punishment or a personal attack. And honestly, my teacher is amazing and I know this, but sometimes I still have to step outside myself and be reminded that corrections are a sign that your teacher sees potential in you. If they thought you couldn't improve, they wouldn't bother repeating the correction. Second, progress is often slower than we want it to be, especially with corrections that require fixing habits we've carried for years or that fight with our natural anatomy. Your girl has thick thighs and hyperextension, and not the kind that looks good, just enough to make life harder. And those two things are not the best combo for straight legs in fifth position. But slow progress doesn't mean nothing is happening. It just means the progress is smaller and harder to see from day to day. And third, there's no shame in feeling frustrated. And this is really important because ballet asks a lot of us and we're human. Part of the journey is letting yourself feel the hard days and then coming back to class anyway. I often think we don't talk about this enough. Compared to other sports or activities, ballet is intensely critical. We stand in front of a mirror, usually in tight clothing, and subject ourselves to an hour and a half of corrections and the pursuit of aesthetic perfection. We don't get to just score a goal or a point. Our entire body has to move with precision, grace, artistry, control, all the things. And we have to listen to everything we could have done better. Some days that might just be too much to ask of yourself, and that's okay. So if you've ever had a good ugly cry on the drive home from class, you are not alone. In fact, I think those moments are part of what connects us as adult dancers. We're not just in it for the perfect technique. We're here because we love it deeply, and ballet challenges us deeply, physically, mentally, emotionally, and somehow we keep showing up because that's what you do when you really love something. So here's what I'm going to try moving forward, and maybe it'll help you too. I'm going to give myself permission to be patient, to accept that some corrections take months, even years to implement, not days or weeks. And honestly, this is probably my least favorite part of ballet, but it's just the truth. I'm going to trust that the work I am doing counts, even if I can't tack on hours of extra practice. Trusting the work you are doing means that you can actually enjoy the time you do have to dance instead of feeling inadequate and behind all the time. When I leave class feeling defeated, I'm not going to come home and force myself to practice in that headspace. For me, this is a recipe for disaster. I have been there and done that, and the practice just isn't productive. Sometimes the best thing I can do is take the rest of the day, or honestly, even a couple days, off. Rest is often the best thing we can do to help our brain and body integrate the corrections we're getting. That's when your brain literally replays and encodes the movement patterns from class. Sometimes you're getting better while you're sleeping, not while you're huffing it out in the studio. Next, I'm going to read through the compliments section of my ballet journal. I've mentioned this in the past, but at the end of each class, I write down not only my corrections, but also the compliments I receive. And on days like today, rereading those positive notes helps me keep perspective. They're like sweet little reminders of the progress that I am making, even when I don't feel like it. Because, let's be honest, emotions aren't always reliable narrators, and we need to actively retrain our brains to notice progress, not just problems. Next, I'm going to look back at videos from a year or two ago and pat myself on the back for how far I've come. Like I just said, our emotions are not a reliable indicator of progress. But you know what is? Video. So I'm going to watch old footage and high-five myself for the work that I've put in and the growth I've achieved. And lastly, but most importantly, I'm going to remember that I'm a human first and a dancer second. My self-worth is not based on how well I dance. My identity comes from the fact that I'm created and loved by God first and foremost. And remembering you're human first is how you protect your joy. It's how you make sure ballet stays life-giving and not draining. Ballet is a gift, and I really do feel so lucky to be a dancer, but I enjoy it most when it's in its proper place. So that's what I wanted to share today. It's not the episode I had planned, but something I'm processing in real time. Because if I'm feeling this way, I know at least one of you listening probably is too. And I really want you to know that you're not failing, you're not alone, you're exactly where you're supposed to be in your ballet journey. Thank you so much for being here and letting me be kind of vulnerable with you in my very first episode without a co-host. And if this resonated, I'd love to hear from you. You can always reach out through the links in the show notes or on Instagram. My handle is @thebusybunhead. I'm really excited to bring you a fun interview episode next week, so stay tuned for that. And if you want to support the podcast and help me produce more episodes, you can join the brand new After Class Corps de Ballet for just $3 a month through the listener support feature, which is also linked in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and I'll talk to you next week after class. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the show, you can join the After Class Corps de Ballet for just $3 a month through the listener support feature. It really helps keep the podcast going, and as a member, you'll even get a special shout out in future episodes. All the links mentioned in this episode, including the link to join the Corps, are included in the show notes. See you next week after class. Podcast produced by Mission Bridge Media.